Now, they did a coin toss, so Mayor Faith will be going first, and the way this will go for the hour and a half is that one question will be asked to one of the candidates, and they'll have 3 minutes with a 1-minute rebuttal by the other candidate, and then we'll reverse the order. And at the end, each of the candidates will be able to ask a question of the other. Now, there's paper and pen up in the back room. If you have a question, you can go up there, write it, and it will come down to the front here. So please, if you have anything, where they are being held up in the back. So we're going to start with Mayor Sally Faith. And so the question goes to her first. And so, Mayor?
3 minutes.
3 minutes?
3 minutes, yeah. 3 minutes you have.
Opening?
Yeah.
All right, okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
And then you'll have the 1-minute rebuttal, Mr. Borgmeyer. So
They both get 3 minutes also. They both get 3 minutes opening.
you wanted 3-minute opening, yeah. So now the opening is up to you. Go right ahead.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you to Lindenwood University for hosting this event, the Chamber of Commerce sponsoring the event, people of St. Charles voting for you to continue to keep St. Charles a great place. And I think that's important. And I also want to thank Mr. Borgmeyer. Thank you very much, sir. 3 strong principles that I have are transparency in government, fiscal responsibility, growing our community, and I have been responsible with your tax dollars. Passed a balanced budget every year. It's a law. You have to. It's not out of my heart. I'm just saying that we did. We balance every year. We pay our bills on time. Create a policy to lower the amount of gaming money used for public safety. Pushed all city departments to continue reducing spending and to be watchdogs of our taxes and your tax dollars. And the state of our city is strong. We have one of only two convention centers in Missouri that makes money. We have increased population by building and more single-family homes. The Board of Realtors is happy about that. And we've kept our community safe by increasing our police force each year. Money Magazine has named St. Charles the best place to live in Missouri in 2018. And we are an important city. We want to be who we are and no one else. Thank you.
Mr. Borgmeyer.
Thank you. I too would like to, my name is Dan Borgmeyer. I would also like to thank the Greater St. Charles Chamber of Commerce and Lindenwood University and Dr. Joe Cernik for hosting this event and allowing me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. I am a 4th generation St. Charles resident. I realize this is a nonpartisan election, but I want you to know that I am a lifelong conservative Republican. Growing up, I attended Barmale Grade School before going to Duchesne High School. After graduating from Duchesne, I attended St. Benedict's College and UMSL before going to Vietnam, where I served as an Army Artillery Combat Unit, and I was honorably discharged at the rank of sergeant. Since my military service, I've owned and operated my own business in St. Charles for more than 45 years. I've been deeply involved civically and charitably in our city during my entire career. I'd intended to run for mayor last time, but at Sally's request, I agreed to wait while she finished one more term. I'd supported Sally in her previous elections. I even helped with the marketing for her last campaign, and years ago, even provided her with my endorsement. Like many of you, I thought Sally would bring energy and efficiency to the office of mayor. Instead, she has let important issues languish, while frivolous, non-essential items have gotten her full attention. Taxes have climbed, incidents of violent crime have risen, and St. Charles is being left behind by other cities in the county. We have a casino that generates $11 million a year in tax revenue. St. Peter's doesn't have a casino. Neither does O'Fallon or Wentzville. Where's the money going? Since Sally took office, we've seen an increase in violent crime. The FBI has reported incidents of rape up 155% in the city of St. Charles. Motor vehicle theft is up 86%. These are real issues impacting real families. From 2012 to 2018, the city budget's grown by more than $30 million, a 31% increase, and we're further in debt than we've ever been. To make up for the rise in city spending, undersalary property taxes have gone up and continue to rise. Water and sewer rates are 61% higher than St. Peter's, which translates to over $360 per year per household. It certainly hasn't fixed all the roads and infrastructure. It hasn't gone to attracting businesses, to all the empty storefronts and industrial ground we have. Instead, we've seen a proposed $1 million welcome sign for I-70, dog statues, a $50,000 painting, and a $180,000 trolley that runs mostly empty. I'm running to make a difference. I intend to bring solid, successful business practice to every department in the city, and I'm running for mayor because I love this city and I want to see it grow and prosper again.
Okay, we're going to start the question process. Now, the first question will go to Mayor Faith. She'll have 3 minutes, and Mr. Borgmeyer will have a 1-minute response. So the question is, what do you think your biggest accomplishment as mayor has been so far?
The biggest accomplishment that has happened, one of the biggest ones for the city, and therefore for me, is the fact of Streets of St. Charles, is the fact that the tourism and is growing, is the fact that we have new people moving in, is the fact that we have a lot of people that are here and they're happy. And I can't make everybody happy, but it is something that that the city wants to grow and do, and we want to give you safety, we want to give you transparency, and we want to give you the things that you need for growing in the city.
Mr. Borgmeyer?
Streets of St. Charles became and was started before Sally was mayor. It was funded, it was begun, she inherited it about 2 years into that program. Subdivisions are not growth, folks. Subdivisions are property that becomes valuable enough that people want to sell it, and then subdivisions get built. That is not economic growth outreach. And thirdly, I stand by my crime statistics from the FBI that I quoted.
All right, this is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, 3 minutes, followed by a 1-minute rebuttal from Mayor Faith. The question is, if elected, what would you do differently as mayor?
Just about everything. I do not think the city is being properly managed. I believe that we are sliding and declining as a city. We are approaching 35% rental property. Property values are declining. From a management standpoint, I am an objective strategy, forward progress person. I intend to, somebody said, I hear you're a rich guy and you're going to go and throw elbows. That's not going to happen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to meet with the council to make sure we're all on the same page, and then I'm going to meet with the department heads, and they will all have objectives. And we will review those objectives every Monday. And the next Monday, we will see how far we've gotten, and we'll talk about how far we're going to go the next week. And we're going to have a goal here, and we're going to progress every week toward that goal. I'm going to get this city moving forward. There will be accountability, there will be transparency, but everybody's going to know where we're going, everyone will know what's expected of them, and as long as they can stand the accountability and they can help me move this city forward, I'm all on their team. I've managed my company that way for 45 years. It's worked very well, and I intend to apply those same basic principles to the city. Now, I've said this before, and I'll say it one more time. You have to inspect what you expect, and you can't manage what you don't measure. We have too many ordinances that just go out there, they get passed, and they float, and there's no accountability, and nothing ever happens. I intend to put an end to that with the help of the council.
Mayor Faith?
I agree that the partnership, and I would just remind each person here, the partnership is with the council, which we have 10 council members, and the mayor. And so there has to be a working, progressive way to get done and get things done. And it's not me and she and they and maybe somebody else. It is very important to do this and working together. It's also important to work internally with the cities and in the county, and that is something that the City of St. Charles has. And I'm looking for my sign of to quit talking. So I'm just saying that we have a lot of important things going.
Mr. Borgmeyer? You have a response.
I will only use a few minutes or a few seconds because I'm going to yield the rest of the mayor to actually answer the question. But what I think is we've got to have leadership. It's about leadership. Sure, there's a council. Sure, there's a staff, and they all do great work. I think the city staff is great. But somebody's got to be out front pointing with vision, showing where they need to go and helping them get there. They're all incredibly great civil servants, but they need leadership. We need a direction, and we need goals, and we need successes.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, 3 minutes, and then a 1-minute response by Mayor Faith. The question is, according to the most recent census numbers, St. Charles continues to grow. What do you think the city needs to do to ensure St. Charles continues to have growth over the next 10 years?
I think there's several reasons. There are several things. Number one is safety. I quoted some crime statistics. The opioid, there's 301 people have died from drug issues in St. Charles in the last 6 years. 301 people have died. I quoted you the rape statistics. I quoted you the theft statistics. We have a drug problem. And we even though we're a tourism city and we don't want a black eye, somebody's got to look at this stuff and face up to it. The infrastructure has got to be there. We've got to be able to provide access. I believe in mentored programs, and I believe in things like we have a facade grant program. My children moved to Kirkwood because they wanted to live in a cool house. We have a lot of cool houses in St. Charles, but they're not being fixed up because you're not being incentivized to do that. I intend to do that. Besides the infrastructure and the access, there's one thing. If you have a safe town, people want to move there. The other thing is you have to have opportunity. You have to have places for people to go and things for people to do. Again, it's got to be economic development. We got to have jobs, okay? And with all due respect to Mayor Faith and Bangert Island and all the other stuff, those are workforce housing jobs. Those are not factory jobs. Those are not ongoing jobs. Those are not jobs that have benefits and payroll with them a lot of times. So I think what you need to do, somebody said the other day, how do you get a Chick-fil-A? You know how you get a Chick-fil-A? You go to Chick-fil-A and you say, we'd like to have a Chick-fil-A. What do we have to do to get you to come to our town? We have 10 vacant buildings on Main Street right now. We need to go to restaurants in St. Louis that we'd like to have in St. Charles and incentivize those people to come here and participate. We need a welcome arms policy. What can we do to bring you to St. Charles and help you be successful? That's what we need, that kind of culture.
Mayor Faith, you have a 1-minute response.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It is important to have leadership, but it has to be someone that will follow that leader. The leader is there, and we need to have people that are hired, that are there, that are hardworking, and the city does have that. Also, when we look at how is the city going to grow, you talk about Bangert Island, that is the opportunity spot because we are landlocked in as far as land. We've got no more larger, we do not have any more larger places that we can bring business to. And so that's why we need to do this. We need to work on Bangert Island, and I'll tell you more about it. Thank you.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, and then Mr. Borgmeyer will have a 1-minute response. The question is, in your opinion, what are the 3 biggest challenges for the city of St. Charles, and what is your plan to address them?
Good point. The 3 biggest challenges, number 1, is looking at the city as a whole, and it's a wonderful city. It is a great place to be and to live and to work and to play, and the things that we have are a variety for everybody who is here, whether they're millennials or whether they're seniors. They have the opportunity to pick and choose and to do those things. But also we need to have growth, and we have to have land. Bangert Island is an important thing that we have, and it is growing, and it's going to happen. And I feel firm with that our state senators and reps have helped us, and I am looking forward to that. And so the challenges are the old and the new, maintaining so that there's a stability, and when it's not 10 years down the line, and you have an opportunity to do and maintain, then it's sometimes too late or costs too much money. It is also the traffic safety that we have, and it is important that we do that, and whatever we need to do with that. And as you know, the things are happening on the roads. We've got many projects that are coming out and that are being completed, and they are for the future of the city. And it's important. Then I would say the third one is we need to take stability. We don't need to change this. We don't need to change that. We need to have the leadership. The leadership is there, and we need to have that stability, and that's what I'm supporting.
Mr. Borgmeyer, you have a 1-minute response.
Thank you. Crime number one. St. Louis can't attract people because it's the number one murder city in the United States. We are not going to be there. This is going to be a safe town. I want the reputation of St. Charles as a cop on every corner. There is plenty of room for growth. The western part of the city, Fountain Lakes has been there for 22 years. 22 years, and it's still not full. That's not growth, okay? We don't have a strong growth policy, and I can give you a quote from the city that says we haven't gone after new business for 7 years. That was at the investors' breakfast. They said 7 years we haven't gone after any growth. We're trying to keep what we got. Well, during that 7 years, St. Peter's, O'Fallon, and Wentzville weren't trying to keep what they had. They kept what they had. They just took our Outback Steakhouse. They're growing, and they're going because they're aggressively out there looking for it. And the last thing about Bangert is find Bangert. We got Streets of St. Charles successful. Now we got Bangert. What about Newtown? What about Midtown? What about Frenchtown? What about Old Town? Why are we abandoning the whole city to replicate what we already have that's a success? And
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a 1-minute response from Mayor Faith. The question, Mr. Borgmeyer, is how would you plan or attempt to address diversity and inclusivity in St. Charles?
I want to read this because I want to make sure I don't misspeak, and I want to be very specific about this. And I know what you're talking about when you talk about diversity. We're talking about a lot of things. We're talking about ethnicity. We're talking about orientation and a lot of other things. I'm a Christian, and I try to live my life every day based on those values I was raised with. Meredith and I are a member of St. Clea's Parish here in St. Charles. As mayor, I am never going to discriminate against anyone who is willing to work together to make St. Charles a better place to live, work, and raise a family. As a city, we aren't going to discriminate against anyone, and we are going to ensure that all our citizens' First Amendment rights are completely protected.
Mayor Faith?
I would assure you that our community does not divide. We do not divide people by labels. We include them, we bring them in. That's what has been happening, and that would continue to be happening with my leadership.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, followed by a response from Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, what is your stance on developing the Bangert Island area? What economic and environmental considerations, research, etc., are part of that decision?
As I indicated earlier, the Bangert Island area is the future, and we need to develop that, and it's for the future, and it will make the area more stable. It will bring 4,000 jobs, and the question that you asked, certainly we have evaluated. We've got, I don't know if you're familiar with Bangert Island, but it's in the Missouri River. And it is there. The city owns it. The city owns the land across from Streets of St. Charles on the other side of the road. And we have looked at all kinds of evaluations. We're working with the Corps of Engineers. We have a matching grant that we have with them. The Corps of Engineers has approved everything that we've got scheduled. And they have come out. They came out last week. And it's important that we do consider that. We're also looking and trying to make sure that the Katy Trail is directed in the right and handled. And the Katy Trail is an important part of this project, and it's also an important part of the city. So we've looked thoroughly at everything.
Mr. Borgmeyer, response?
I saw the Bangert Island plan. It was submitted 20-something years ago by a man named Mike Sellenshooter. At the time, everybody said, "You're crazy, you're out of head, it'll never work." I'm not opposed to Bangert Island in the right way at the right time. To my knowledge, RFPs have gone out for Bangert Island saying, what should we do with it? What would you do with it? I don't even think there's been an economic impact study done for Bangert Island. I may be wrong, but I believe there's not been enough. So what you're saying is, if Bangert Island is completely successful, is that going to make Streets of St. Charles less successful? She talks about the Jewel on Main Street. Main Street's going out of business, folks. We got 10 vacant buildings in 4 blocks. We have work to do, and it's not all for billions of dollars at Bangert Island. It's Frenchtown, it's Newtown, it's other places.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a response from Mayor Faith. The question is, based on a 2018 Youth in Need statistical of 25% of homeless youth it serves are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transsexual, what are your plans to add protections for them in areas like housing, given that sexual orientation and gender identity are not protected in the Missouri Human Rights Act?
I will reiterate my statement from before about non-discrimination. Okay, we have a lot of great charitable and civic organizations that will take care of those kind of things, but it all starts up front with the lack of discrimination. I believe there's a diversity group that's being formed in St. Charles. I support that diversity group. I think it's important to look at all those issues. And let's face it, this is not 40 years ago. We're different. We're all different. We're LGBTQ, we're Caucasians, we're African Americans, we're Hispanics. It's a melting pot. That's what St. Charles was, that's what it's going to be. And that's what makes us great, our diversity. The most important thing in that diversity is discussion. We need to sit down and we need to talk. We need to understand, walk in the other guy's shoes. We need to know what's going on. We need to know what their empathies are, we need to know what their activities are, and what their needs are. That's how you do it. You start with that, and everything works out from that. The core of it all is all of us in agreement that those are acceptable behaviors or lifestyles or whatever they are. It doesn't make any difference anymore. Okay? As long as we have those communications and we're all singing from the same hymnal is the old story. As long as we're all singing from the same hymnal on that, there will be plenty of opportunity for that. Builders won't discriminate. Jobs won't discriminate. That's pretty much all gone. There's a lot of federal regulations that keep it from happening, but at the same time, if the spirit's not behind it, it won't work. So I'm talking about, and part of my platform and my entire presentation tonight is going to be about communication and discussion.
Mayor Faith, a response?
I would again say that the City of St. Charles has a Human Relations Committee that has been there for many years. It was there before I became mayor. And things go through that committee, and we've had certainly parades that we've had in the summer and the spring, events that we've had in the park with the LBGTs, and it's important that, and I would say and stress that our community does not divide people up with labels.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, followed by a response from Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, the I-70 corridor is looking a little tired. What do you think can be done to create better access and economic development along the corridor? Do you have ideas on ways the city can incentivize redevelopment along this corridor to build on the success of the Streets of St. Charles project?
Certainly the 70 corridor is important, It has been what I would say to you is I have ideas, but because I have ideas doesn't mean they'll happen because it's owned by MoDOT. If you look at the side roads, MoDOT manages that. MoDOT scoops the snow. MoDOT repairs it. That is something that MoDOT needs to be to answer that question. But what I see, not on Highway 70, but what I see is the future of looking to get traffic and people around. And what I see is in that also there are a lot of there's a lot of land in between the service road and Highway 70 and going out west. And MoDOT has put together a Highway 70 corridor study, but MoDOT has the lead in that, and they have what they say, yes, no, whatever it is. But the city and the county are there, and we can use some of that land to expand and make businesses and provide a location for a new business.
Mr. Borgmeyer, response?
It just doesn't happen that way. We've been losing business to Hazelwood because they have better tax incentives than we have. That's what brings businesses. I don't say TIFs. I'm talking about tax abatement programs and things like that. That's how you fill the land along there. Under the proposal for MoDOT, they're proposing one-way service roads. It was said the other day, they got that Texas turnaround. You go down one-way service road, bang, you turn around, you get to come right back. Well, if you live in St. Andrews and you want to go to St. Andrews Plaza and we have one-way service roads, you're going to go to Cave Springs, you're going to take the Texas turnaround, you're going to come all the way back to Zumbel, you're going to take the Texas turnaround, and then you're going to go to St. Andrews. I've been in a lot of cities. I travel. I'm in 4 different cities a week, and I've been doing that for 20 years. I've seen one-way service roads all over the country. If you've been to the lake, you've seen what they've done to the lake. I'm not in favor.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a response by Mayor Faith. The question is, will you comply with the city charter and be a full-time mayor without outside income?
You mean will I have a job, or will I have money that's outside the mayor's office?
I think the question is in outside job.
I just sold, like I said, 4 years ago, I was going to run. I talked to Sally. I knew I had things to do. I agreed not to. I have for 4 years positioned myself to sell my company. I sold it to my son, Jack, January 1, 2019. I went in the other day and laid my gas expenses on his desk, and he said, "Hey, buddy, you don't work here no more." So I am totally prepared to commit 100% of my available time to the city, my resources, and the things I've learned. I'm not running for a job. I can get a job tomorrow, and I don't even know if I want a job. But I do want to be mayor. I want to make a difference. I am passionate about this. I am not going to stand. People say, "You're pretty aggressive." At the risk of offending somebody, you're damn right I'm aggressive. I'm going to get some stuff done. I'm going to light some stuff up. Now, Sally is right. I can't do that by myself. The council has to do that, and the staff has to do that. And I think we got a good council, and I think we got a good staff. But they're bumping along. They need somebody to motivate them. They got to want to come to work in the morning. And my people in my office.
I think your phone's ringing.
My people in my office, every day I get up, for 45 years, I couldn't wait to go to work. My people are like that. We have a very happy, healthy culture. I'd like to see a little better culture in the city. I'd like to see, when you go to St. Peter's, you know what's the matter? You go to St. Peter's and you go, "I'd like to open a business," and they go, "What can we do to make that happen for you? What assistance can we give you? How can we make it work for you? Come on, let us do it for you." I don't think that culture necessarily exists at that level, and if you're not at that level, then you're not competing. So that's what I want to do. That's where I want to go. I think that's how it will happen.
Response by Mayor Faith.
You know what? We are the city of St. Charles. We have so much to offer. We have such variety. Lynn Pagano doesn't want to be St. Charles, and St. Charles doesn't want to be Lynn Pagano and St. Peter's or any other city. We have got good people who work hard, who work for the city. We have got plans. We are going places. And this is something that has happened over the last 8 years. This is something that is going to continue to happen in the future. You have to do that and not try to copy another city around you, because you as a person that lives or was raised or came and moved to St. Charles, you have a wonderful city. Ding.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, followed by a response by Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, the Chamber is very supportive of the efforts to revitalize Frenchtown and create a vibrant residential neighborhood and arts district for visitors and residents that does not compete with Maintown. Have you had the opportunity to review the recent audit? How do you feel about this effort?
I think it's great. Frenchtown needs help. Frenchtown, and the study was done before I was mayor. It sat there. It didn't go anywhere. We revised it. Frenchtown has organized. They want to be their own focus, their own area. They want to be special. They want to do not Main Street or not streets of St. Charles. I'm not going to flap my hands here, okay? Are not streets of St. Charles. They want to be their own development. There are so many ways that we can help. A lot of things were put into the plan, and they said, you could do this, you need to do that, there's some things to do. And they said that the city had grown and that there were opportunities. Now, one of the opportunities, I would say, is when you buy a business in Newtown, you've got an older building and you've got to have sprinkler system. And I hear rumors that sprinkler systems cost anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000, and I don't believe that. But we will get the facts. We will provide them with an opportunity to move in with a type of grant from the city. Now, the council members that are here, they don't know I've said that. Here, you know now, okay? And so looking to help them to grow, and they want businesses. They want to be their own place. And I am willing to help them as much as I can.
Response, Mr. Borgmeyer?
Mayor, the question was Frenchtown, not Newtown.
Did I say Newtown?
Secondly,
Did I say
there was a study done in 2002, 16 years ago. They did a revitalization study of Frenchtown, 16 years ago, okay? 8 of those were under Sally's tutelage, okay? We just redid the revitalization for Frenchtown. What happened for 16 years? What happened for 8 years? Frenchtown has been a stepchild. It is an incredibly diverse economic place, and there's going to have to be a very special redevelopment. I have a plan for that I've actually discussed with some of the people in Newtown about how to revitalize that area, but you can't do it under its you can't do it under the present purview. That was bound to happen.
Frenchtown. Sometime.
Response, Mayor Faith?
Well, we both know it's Frenchtown, right? Okay. So we're moving forward in the right direction. It is very important that we continue on. And the Chamber of Commerce has been taking a big part in this. They've kept you've got to keep people together and keep the glue together and see what it is that it would be the best thing. And so I appreciate the Chamber of Commerce doing that, and Scott Tate has. And they are excited. You got to get excited about life. You've got to get excited about the city. You've got to get excited and want to go forward. And this is a city to get excited about.
This is a question for Mayor Faith and a response by Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, municipalities in City of St. Louis and St. Louis County would like for people across the state to believe that the issue of merging the city and the county only impacts them and the rest of the state shouldn't have a vote. Others might argue that as the economic engine for Missouri, a stagnant or shrinking economy does impact the entire state. What is your position on Better Together's plan to merge the two into a metro city?
First of all, we're early in the discussion. Second of all, I support that the people that are having their decisions made for them by the state of Missouri is not something that is right. The St. Louis City, St. Louis County, Lynn Pagano and I go to a meeting every month of metro mayors in St. Louis County, and they're the larger cities that are in St. Louis County. And they have things that they have needs and challenges and so on, but this is certainly a big one. And I, at this time, support, and tomorrow support, the fact that the city and the county should be able to vote for their own destination.
Mr. Borgmeyer, response?
I agree with the mayor that it's too early to tell. Those cities have been separate since like 1837. What I would like to see is the millions of dollars being spent on this Better Together business solve the crime. You solve the crime in St. Louis, people are going to move here. There is Steve Elman gave an address at lunch today. There is a domino effect. If St. Louis goes down, it's going to impact us. He said people don't look at St. Charles, they look at St. Louis, and then they look at St. Charles. So I don't agree with it in its present state and its present rendering, but we're a year. It's going to be voted on in November of 2020, and there's going to be a lot that happens before that. But at this point, I do agree with the mayor. I don't want to see a statewide vote, but I think it's way too early for anybody to have a positive opinion about it.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a response by Mayor Faith. The question is, what support should the city and mayor provide to cultural and social institutions such as the Foundry Art Center, Municipal Band, Sister Cities, and Festival of the Little Hills?
I think those are all very worthy undertakings, and I think they should be supported by the city at a reasonable level. There's a lot of competition in St. Charles for budget dollars. Everybody wants their piece of the pie. I talked to him about that in Frenchtown. And my position in Frenchtown was, look, you're not going to solve this problem with city money. You've got to find individual dynamic developers who want to come in and take this project on. I visited with a few of them. There is interest down there. But as far as I listened to the municipal band last week at the Foundry. It was great. I was papa and right along with them. Those things are all important. There's a lot of charitable organizations. I don't know. Funding charitable organizations is kind of a thin line when it comes to taxpayer dollars. You have to be very careful about that. But as far as municipal things, I think that's the fabric of life. I used to sit in Blanchette Park in a swing with my mom and dad while they were listening to the band. So it's a good thing. I think all those things should be funded. I think that, in my business, we had 12 departments. Every department had a budget. I think you put the budget up, and if it fits in the budget, you do it. If it doesn't fit in the budget, you don't do it. Or you decide to move money from someplace else to that budget to make it happen. 100% support of those services because that's the fabric of life. That's what makes it a good place to live and a good place to be. But again, you have to manage. First of all, you have to inspect what you expect. If you're having a band concert and there's 6 people there, you probably should move the money someplace else. If there's 100 people there, you maybe should move some money over there. So this is where I go back to the basic business axiom. It's like 1 + 1 = 2. You have to inspect what you expect, and if that measures up, that's how you manage it according to those guidelines.
Mayor, response?
Yes, sir. Certainly the arts and culture are very important. The city of St. Charles has a committee that is put together of council members, arts and culture, and they they look at their applications and they make decisions. I know I love music. If it was up to me, I'd give everything that sings and dances some money. Now, don't start getting up and dancing, all right? But I want to say that it is important. It's quality of life. And the Foundry Art Center is a great place. We need a lot of people to come. Thank you.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, followed by a response by Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, what does the city government plan to do in the future to address the problems of the homeless population and those severely marginalized by old age, illness, or job category elimination?
A good question. When I became mayor, I started a clergy coalition meeting. All the churches in the city of St. Charles, we've got a large database, and we send that out, reminders every month, and send that out to them, and we meet in the council chambers. It's a neutral territory. We need to communicate, as the word has been said many times. We need to communicate. We need to help each other. We need to look and see how we, the city, can help. And if we keep them current on what is going on, we've also have the police and the fire, someone from them come, and they are there to answer questions. So the point is, we've been working on it. It needs a lot of money. And as I'm sure many of you know, that the challenge with the homeless is a challenge, but homeless men have nowhere to go. They can't go to the Salvation Army. They can't, if there's women and children. So it's the homeless men that need a place. And I would say that Joachim and Ann has really put together a good program that they've gotten federal funding for, and probably it's been the last 2 years, year and a half to 2 years. And they're looking how to get people together and to help them. Now, there's something that you need to think about, is some of them do not want help. They don't want our help. They want the way that they're doing, but they need help and they need to be safe. And so it is a challenge. I mean, 8 years ago I started this, and that was our goal, was homeless people. And people that I've met in St. Louis County will say, well, I didn't know St. Charles had homeless people. Well, yes, we do. And we need to try and meet their needs. And who we is, there's a group that's been put together. There's a book called Toxic Charity. I would suggest that you look at it. And it reads quickly, but it talks about if this little boy in school doesn't have shoes or doesn't have a coat, giving him or her a coat and shoes, that doesn't take care of the problem. And so it is a larger problem. And the churches have been trying, the churches have opened up. They have, and for the cold weather, they don't need a sprinkler system. They have they have training. They have people who volunteer 3 a night to be at the churches, so that there's someone there all the time. And they're working, things are better now than they were 8 years ago, but they've got a long way to go. Don't push the button.
Mr. Borgmeyer, response?
It takes a lot more than a minute, but I'll give you a quick overview. One of my favorite cities in the United States is Greenville, South Carolina. I've been there many times. My daughter lived there for a while. It is the jewel of the East Coast. It is the most progressive city on the East Coast. You know their biggest problem? Homelessness. You know why? Because the churches and the organizations opened their arms to them. And now the word is, if you're homeless, get over to Greenville, South Carolina. They'll take care of you. You have to inspect what you expect. We need to look at the homeless problem. We need to define it, decide what avenues are available, and then fund the ones that make sense and move forward from there. You just can't start throwing loaves of fishes out there and letting everybody eat it. At some point, it's got to be a manageable situation, just like every other item in the city.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a response by Mayor Faith. The question is, what should the City Council have done about the bar situation on North Main Street? What influence should the mayor have had on the City Council during the debate on this issue?
I attended every hearing about the bars on Main Street. I'm going to tell you one more time. You got to inspect what you expect, and you can't manage what you don't measure. 12 years ago, an ordinance was passed for $200,000 a year in food, or 50% food, 50% liquor. You know how many times that was audited in 12 years? 0. Nobody checked. And then you started getting buckets with 6 bottles of beer in them, and you started getting rap music, and you started getting honky-tonkin'. The purpose of that 50-50 was for restaurants to develop on Main Street. But nobody checked it, nobody held them accountable, and then, when it was totally out of hand, crisis management. Let's shut them down. Chris Marshall came to me from Llewellyn's. He said, my God, Dan, I just put $2 million in this building. I can't close at 11 o'clock at night. It was a hammer when it should have been a communication thing. I attended every one of those hearings, and I will fault the staff somewhat on this because those guys in the bar said, tax us $1 on, tax us 1% on booze. They were very forthcoming with solutions, but the answers that kept coming back were the ones that the city wanted to bring back, okay? The guys on Main Street were willing to take responsibility. They've knocked off the rap music, they've changed their speakers, they've done a lot of other things. And I'm not the bar guy from Main Street, but I think every man in business or woman in business deserves an even shake. And I don't think you can go to the city or to the bars and say, look, we didn't check for 12 years, and now that you're out of control, we're going to shut you down. That's a black eye in St. Louis. I still see people in St. Louis who go, well, don't the bars out there close at 11 o'clock? It damages PR-wise, it damages business-wise, okay? Now we're going to have 11 vacant buildings in 4 blocks. If you've got a bar that's out of control, you know what you do? You send the cops into the bar, and you keep giving them tickets, and you keep fining them, and eventually you put that bar out of business. You don't legislate 12 or 15 of them and try to control behavior through legislation. I don't buy that, okay? So it's back to the old axiom. Those guys down there, some of them are going to be in business, some of them are still going to go out of business. The ones that obviously couldn't make it, but now we also have a handful of lawsuits. That didn't have to happen. You need to sit down, you need to talk. You need to come to an even path and then move in that direction.
Response, Mayor Faith.
First of all, it's called leadership. Yes, I can't change, none of us can change what's happened in the past. But it takes someone to realize that the places are full. If it says 150 people on the window, that's all can be in there, and there's 250, that's dangerous, and that's common sense. There are a lot of things, but my point I want to make, and I think the question was, the council, I got 30 seconds, and not in September 27th, the council passed ordinance number 18201, and that was by 7 yeses, 2 noes, and 1 was absent. And then the other one on December 12th was ordinance that was passed by the council 100%, and I think they did the right thing.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, followed by a response from Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, do you intend to keep the city ambulance service, knowing that the county ambulance district is required by law to serve the city? If so, why?
Good question. On the 3-minute thing, is that what I am?
Yeah.
Okay. I just got to verify. All right. Certainly, we are looking at that in relation to our fire department. And there was a bill that was filed by Senator Eigel that sort of brought everything up and put it together. But I want to say to you that the city of St. Charles has the only fire department individuals, as they are also paramedics. They are also looking at, and we're looking at the city of St. Charles and how we can take care of that issue. Our goal, and we could save some money on some taxes, but it's the world's changed, and we need to have conversations with the county and with the districts that have their own fire and have fire and ambulance. It's an important issue. It's safety, but with the growth of the county, you need to evaluate how much has the population grown here. It's grown quite a bit. Where is the fire station? It's over there. Well, how do we get to this, and what is the safety? And the city of St. Charles is in that process now.
Response, Mr. Borgmeyer.
I'm not sure whether it's a Bill Eigel question. It seems to me...
I didn't ask him to do it.
It seems to me that would be an issue that we would deal with locally and make our own determination on whether we want a city ambulance district separate from the one in the county. I was curious about it. I've asked the question several times. The explanations I've been given lend themselves to the fact that we do have a little better response time than other places. And I think until that becomes so much of a burden, I'd rather see people getting taken to the hospital when they need to or getting the treatment they need when they need to, rather than do that. It's been in effect for a long time. It's not a complaint issue pretty much as far as I know. And I think we leave it alone for the time being.
Okay, this is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a response by Mayor Faith. The question is, I keep hearing about communications, yet crime on Main Street wasn't communicated. Grapevine, which is unreliable, causes a festering sore. How are you going to be transparent?
Is anybody on Nextdoor? I just got on that, and I am astounded by the number of doors that are getting kicked in, the number of cars that are being stolen. I mean, they got lost dogs, and somebody wants to know how to sew up the back of their pants or whatever, but it makes me a little crazy. But there's a real issue there. These people on the street know that all the good news isn't all the good news. It's happening to them. And I'll tell you what else is happening. It's funny that one of my friends here in the audience, his wife was asleep on the couch right inside the door from their garage. They went in there in the outside car, took the garage door open, and stole her car. You know the only thing they're stealing? Change. There were credit cards, there were checkbooks. I've seen that repeatedly on Nextdoor. You know why they just take change? Because you can't track it and because they can buy drugs with it. I also heard that a lot of this car theft has to do with initiation. You need to steal a car, and that's how you get in the club. Those are all things that we need to address from that standpoint. I'm not sure that, thank you, I'm not sure that this issue is particularly pertinent, but, and I'm sorry, I have a lapse here just for a minute. Would you repeat the question to me?
Sure. I keep hearing about communication, yet crime on Main Street wasn't communicated.
That's enough, Joe. Thank you. I appreciate it. That's, you know, like when you walk in that room and you can't remember what you said and you have to go back in the room. I intend to be Facebook. I intend to tweet. I think people need to know every day what's going on, not just what the results are of a meeting that was held someplace and then be told how this works. I think we need more community participation. I mean, we live in an age of social media. It's easy to communicate. I wish I could get my kids to communicate with me. If I'm not on social media, I can't talk to them. But I think that's an important element that we need to initiate into the city processes. It's not just the newsletter that comes out every once in a while or anything else. It's ongoing, consistent communication. People are good on Facebook. People are good on Twitter. Hey, this is what's happening in the city. Send us your information. It's very easy to monitor. It's very easy to measure. And it's very easy to do. So I fully intend to operate with a lot of transparency and a lot of external communication. At the same time, I also think we need to communicate effectively with things like the hospital. Talk to the people in the hospital. You know, we fixed up the street and they got lights and they got flowers, but did anybody go to the hospital and say, hey, do we have a gerontologist? Do we have an addictionologist at St. Joe? We need to tell St. Joe what we need in terms of services for our people, and I think that's all basic communication.
Mayor Faith, a response?
Certainly, the city of St. Charles has grown in the last 3 to 4 years in their social media. It has been extensive. It has been an opportunity to find things out. Am I, as a mayor, going to put on the Facebook that someone got shot today? No.
Is that okay? A response by Mr. Borgmeyer?
I thought that was it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, we're even, Joe.
We're
One for
getting
you, one
all
for
the
me.
questions from the audience, so I got to make sure I'm reading them properly.
Yeah.
Okay, Mayor Faith, this is for you. What are your plans for the SCAT bus? There is one bus with a broken lift. They got bigger buses, but still can't take 2 wheelchairs. It affects those with disabilities.
Good point. The SCAT system is the only one in the St. Charles County area, and I told Lynn Pagano if they took it over, it would be SPAT. But And so we have that, and you know what? The buses connecting St. Charles and going down to the Metrolink in the morning, people going to work, people coming home, they're full. They have birthday parties, they like each other. At night, coming back, those buses are full. Now, the ones that go around town, the city of St. Charles, it's to help people to get in their daily needs of where they need to go. And the price is right, and they need to get around. But we've got a challenge, and I took to the council about 2 years ago that we would like to have a public-private partnership, have someone to drive the scat buses and make them longer. But when you put the dollars and the dimes to it, and I didn't know that one of the pieces was broken, so we will check into that. But we need to be able to provide people to get around. And it gets frustrating when people that don't live in St. Charles City say, well, I can't get around, but we can't send our buses out there. We're looking at reevaluating that strategy, doing a public-private. Also, we worked hard with the SSM Hospital, with Ameristar. They extended that to a 24-hour run for probably about 4 months for their third shift. And we tried to do it, and we did it. We kept track of everything, and it was not productive. They decided not to continue on and do it. So SCAT is an important thing, needs to be maintained correctly, so I will make sure we do that. But it is important that we have a transportation for everyone.
Mr. Borgmeyer, response?
I am 100% behind the SCAT program. I think it's a good program. I think it provides a very needed service to the elderly, to the disabled, and to people who just do not have the opportunity to move from place to place. And I think it's a good program, and I would support it completely.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a response from Mayor Faith. The question is, define leadership. What makes you a leader?
Leadership is being able to provide the people that you interact with a sense of direction and a sense of motion. To quote Earl Nightingale, you wouldn't get on a ship and go someplace if you didn't know where it was going. That's the leader's job. The leader's job is to be out front and say, based upon input, this is not an autocratic thing. This is based on input and communication. But when we're all singing from the same hymnal and we know where we want to go, the leader provides the impetus to get there. Like I said earlier, you know how you eat an elephant? Everybody know that one? You eat it one bite at a time. And that's where we have to go with St. Charles. We have to start taking steps day after day. If there's a week that goes by without productive activity that's taking us to the goal, then those things need to be changed. That's where accountability comes into it. Leadership, I think, first starts with leading by example. If you're going to lead, you've got to show the people where you're going to go, and you're going to show them why they need to go there and why they want to go there and how we're going to get there. If they don't have confidence in you that that's going to happen, this helter-skelter stuff, it just doesn't work anymore. Not in the world. There's millions of dollars being wasted all the time. And people have approached me about different things in the city. Well, how will we be able to afford this? How will we be able to afford this? I guarantee you there's enough money falling through the cracks to do a lot of things right now that need to be done that we're not doing. And I think that goes back to, you got hands back, and I know you can all chant that in a little while if you want to. But that's my axiom. That's my id. That's what I'm about. If you know what you're doing and where you're going and why you're going there, if you get a program that's not producing, you shouldn't do the program. Somebody brought up to me about one of the situations in the city. Is it productive? I don't know. There's just a discussion this week about closing Main Street to traffic during Christmas time. One of the merchants said that I do 70% of my business on Main Street between Thanksgiving and Christmas. How can you close the street? There's solutions to that. There's ways to work that out. I don't have 30 seconds left? Then I won't go into my story. But again, leadership is a function of setting goals, showing people how you're going to get there, and communicating effectively and rewarding them properly if they get there. You can't have cops and not pay them, expect them to take bullets. So I think that's the function of leadership.
Mayor Faith, a response?
I think leadership is something that you learn. It is something that you have experience doing. It is something that takes and that the individuals that you are talking to or that you are directing, that they know where you're going, that they trust you, that they believe what you're saying, that you will be there, that you will do. I know money is money, but we have got good people at the City of St. Charles, and they have worked very hard, and our police department and our fire department, and we're looking at trying to be fair to everyone, and it is a difficult thing when it comes to budget time. But leadership is experience, and if you have that experience, it is, I would say to you, it is not a business. Oh, poo.
This is a question for Mayor Faith. Question is, why do you dissolve the Beautification Committee that was in existence before you became mayor?
When I became mayor, prior to that, there had been money that had been given to the city that they were spending. The Beautification Committee was spending. And I went to the meetings, and the money was gone. B, we would need to put more money in. It wasn't all gone. But looking at, certainly we have beautification with the businesses that have their own flowers on Main Street, and looking at places. But it just went away. I didn't dissolve it. I mean, I didn't write a note and say it's dissolved, but there was no money. So what were we going to do?
Mr. Borgmeyer, response?
This is a very simple answer. Meredith told me if I become mayor and we don't have a beautification committee, she's going to kill me.
That takes care of it.
I do believe that St. Charles needs a facelift. I think we need to look at certain places. I had a discussion with some gentlemen today about extension of the facade grant program. I think it's a great program. I think we need to push it out a little bit. It's like the Frenchtown thing. The Frenchtown study goes to Tecumseh Street. Well, what are you going to do when you get off 370 and go to Tecumseh? It needs to be fixed up. It needs to be beautified. You need to drive into St. Charles and go, it's a nice place. Amen. Meredith.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer with a response by Mayor Faith. The question is, St. Charles should be smoke-free, but there always seems to be roadblocks. Do you think St. Charles should be smoke-free?
I was involved in restaurant business for a very brief period of time, and when I was, the first thing I did was make the restaurant smoke-free. On the other hand, if you go into a bar that allows smoking and you don't want to smoke, don't go in the bar. That's the other side of the argument. Now, there's no sense not calling a spade. I mean, the casino has a definite smoking advantage, and they probably need it. They're paying us $11 million. So maybe we need to make some allowances there. But maybe there should be a smoking area and a non-smoking area. But I mean, come on, we're all adults. If you go someplace and there's smoke and you don't like it, if you went to a restaurant and food was bad, would you go there to eat? Heck no, you wouldn't. So now you want to go to a restaurant where they don't have smoking and you want to put them out of business because they smoke. I don't get it, folks. I'm just kind of a common sense old country boy that grew up here in St. Charles. So I think we got to give people the opportunity to do what they want to do. If I have a bar and I want smoking in my bar, now there is an argument that wait staff and people like that have to work in a smoking environment. If you don't want to work in a smoking environment, don't apply for a job. That's my opinion on it.
Response, Mayor Faith?
Certainly, the city and the city council a couple of years ago passed. We looked into it in depth. The smoking had people testify. We had public hearings, public meetings, and made sure that we knew where the people who were testifying came from. Oh, I'm on a short stick here, right? Okay, and make sure they had a dog in the fight. But I agree. We need to. I won't walk. There needs to be a sign on that door. If it says smoking, I won't go. I'll pass right by it. If it says no smoking, I will go. And certainly the Ameristar Casino is a support to the city of St. Charles, and they have gone non-smoking all the way except for the floor.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, followed by a response from Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, what happened to the Rexflex that voters approved many years ago, and what are you doing to get us a Rexflex?
When I became mayor, there was money in the account that to do a Rexflex. I don't know if it's REX or REC. Anyway, but we, as the councils, the members, through the terms of the last 8 years, made a decision that money should be used somewhere else. And we tried to find a place. Now, I know you're going to laugh about this, but we tried to find a place to put, because when it was passed, it only was for the building. It wasn't to purchase land, because the concept was it was a partnership. And that land was owned by someone, and they were going to give it, and so the ordinance the bill that was passed and the funds were only for the building. So we tried to get a park that we'd use the land. The city owns the land. We worked on that, and the people south of 70 wouldn't go north. The people north of 70 wouldn't go south. Now, there are human beings that live north and south of 70, but that was something that we were not able to use because it did not pay. There would be a deficit each year. So that money was used, and I can certainly give that information out, but where, I don't remember.
Response, Mr. Borgmeyer?
I was at the Recplex this morning. I'm there almost every morning when the weather's bad. It is amazing. It's not a Recplex, it's an auditorium. They built it for the Olympics. We have a casino that generates $11 million a year. We don't have a casino. We don't have a Recplex. Somebody said the other day, well, we got Gold's Gym. I know, I'm Silver Sneakers. I used to go to Gold's Gym. We don't have a Recplex. And now, you know what they did? Just built 200 to 300 apartments next to the Recplex. You know what happens if you rent? You get a membership to the Recplex. You know what you got if you got a membership to the Recplex? You got a place to go, you got a reason to be there, you got a cool apartment, and when it comes time for you to move and get your family and build where you're going to live, you're going to live in St. Peter's. Now you come to St. Charles and go to the park.
Response, Mayor?
No, I think it's
Oh,
next
sorry,
question.
yes.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, this is for Mr. Borgmeyer. Question is, what do you feel needs to be done to attract young professionals and young families to the city of St. Charles?
I can answer that one very easily. We need good jobs and cool places. Okay, my daughter moved to Kirkwood. We go down there from time to time. You can walk the streets in Kirkwood. There's restaurants. There's not bars with 6 bottles of beer in a bucket. Okay, they manage that well. We need to attract those kind of things to St. Charles. Now, I am of the belief that St. Charles Main Street is one entity. Streets of St. Charles is successful. That's good. I don't think it needs to be a behemoth, but I think it's good. And then we have Main Street, and then we have Frenchtown, and actually we have Newtown. We were at Newtown the other night. Nice deal. They all have their own distinct personalities. I think that is a very diverse appeal to young people. But you got to give them someplace cool to live too. And I don't think we're going to ride bikes around town or anything like that. I don't think St. Charles is of that mentality. But we got to have good jobs. There's got to be some, and you know how you get good jobs? You attract businesses. You know how to attract businesses? You get off your duff and you go to cities and you meet with site planners and everybody else, and you attract business to St. Charles. Do you have to give them a tax break? You bet you do, or you're not going to see them. I'm not talking TIFs. I'm talking tax breaks. We've been losing business to Hazelwood because their tax break is about, I can't verify this, but I think it's about 8% better than ours. I met with Bob Millstone the other day. I said, you've been 22 years with Fountain Lakes. What's the deal? I keep getting beat on tax abatements. Let's give them more. Let's give them 3% more than Hazelwood, and then they'll move here. And then we won't be lamenting saying, well, we don't have enough of a tax break. Let's get out there and mix it up and do it. That's how Greenville, I was in Greenville 25 years ago, and I went jogging at night. I was on a consulting job, and I was actually afraid for my safety. It was a slum. Bilo, BMW, all the businesses got together, and they bought Main Street. And they turned it into what they wanted it. It was not some guy that they had to let come in who wanted a variance. And they said, no, we want this kind of business. Go get us a jerky shop. They got a moonshine thing. Go get us a clothing store. Go get us this or that. That's how you do it. Planned growth that you aggressively go out and pursue. They're not going to walk in your office in St. Charles and say, hey, you guys got any place I can build my new factory? I heard this the other day. Western Union moved here with 800 jobs. You know what the gift from the city was? 50 coffee cups. I did the math. That's 16 people a cup. Somebody's going to catch somebody else's cold. Okay? We've got to get out there. We've got to mix it up. We've got to have an aggressive program toward the kind of businesses we want, not necessarily the kind that want to come here.
Mayor Faith, a response?
Certainly, live, work, and play environment is important to the millennials, and it's important to the seniors also. When the EDC did a study, they said, both groups like pretty well about the same thing. They want to walk, they want to be there, they want to get around, and I'm not a senior. I want you to know that. Okay, and but it is ACF is looking at expanding. And they're expanding in relation to lofts and buildings and the future. That's where ACF behind the Foundry, going north, connecting to Newtown. That is the place, and that is your live, work, and play. And it also has the ability to help Frenchtown.
This is a question for Mayor Faith, followed by a response from Mr. Borgmeyer. The question is, what, in your opinion, do you think of the parks and how they are funded, and are you supportive of that?
Absolutely. The Parks Department, the St. Charles City Parks Department, it's a separate entity, but we work together. That communication, how do we get together? We work together. And here's an example. Proposition P was passed, and a third of it went to, and it has a sunset on it. I want to remind everybody, it doesn't go on forever. It goes on for 15 years, and we're 2 years into that. And the parks took the money, the third they have, and they built everything, and it's been used since this last summer. But the parks does great. They should be supported. They do a good job. And then the other part of Prop P certainly is for stormwater. And if you will see when you get your quarterly newsletter, that this is information, and then the parks on the back has everything that's there. It's a great place. They do a good job, and I would continue to support them. I don't know anyone who wouldn't.
Mr. Borgmeyer, response?
I think we have an amazing Parks Department. I support them 100%, and I think that they are under, the president of the park board is Sally's campaign manager. Smart guy, he's doing a good job. I won't hold that against him. I think the parks are doing a wonderful job, and I would continue in that vein.
Thank you.
Certainly.
This is a question for Mr. Borgmeyer, followed by a response from Mayor Faith. The question is, St. Charles City has a plethora of aging residential properties. What impact programs do you propose to stop the deterioration of housing stock?
I spoke briefly about facade grants. I think that program needs to be expanded. I'm going to say it again. You got to inspect what you expect, okay? I think there's a lot of rental property that's not receiving the proper inspection attention. I think there are places that are deteriorating. There's a lot of rental property in town, there's no doubt about it, but somebody's got to check it. They got to make sure it's clean. They got to make sure it works. They got to make sure it functions. And they got to make sure that the structure of the house, and this isn't going to affect the people living in it. This isn't the renters. This is the owners. I have a couple pieces of rental property. You got to keep it up. You got to keep it right, and that's how values go up. If we can use a facade program to encourage that, I would like to see the facade program be to the point where we'll give you a facade grant, but you have to live in the house if you use the money to fix it up. It can't be a rental unit. I'd like to see us move off of that. I heard the word the other day, 35% of St. Charles is rental property. That's untenable. Okay? That includes apartments and things like that, but that's still the number. But I think the responsibility doesn't lie with the tenants. I think the responsibility lies with us and the owners. Hey, Mr. Owner, your place is not up to speed. You need to fix it up to speed. If it's not up to speed, they're not going to. People don't put money in rental property usually unless they have to. Very few of them have pride of ownership like they should have. And we've got a lot of that in St. Charles. So I think the solution to that is definitely an administrative function in the city where we look at what the condition of these places. And if they're dumps, it's kind of like the bar being a problem. If the bar's a problem, you send the cops in. If the house is run down, you go to the owner and you say, fix it up or we're going to move you on. Somebody's got to stand up for this, so that's what I would do.
Mayor Faith, a response?
The point that we're looking at is to try and, you're right, help and support and with funding, with grants, that if you live in that house for 5 years, then that's not payable back to the city. But you have criteria. There are inspections going on. There are people that are doing this. And you got to get an excitement about your neighborhood. And when you see that house next door painted purple, no, when you see that house next door, you are wanting to do and get, I don't know about you, but I do. I want a little competition here. I guess it's called the Joneses. But we need to develop and work with the people that need that repairs and the things done. And thank you very much.
We're at the point where each of the candidates will ask a question of the other. And so we will have Mayor Faith ask a question of Mr. Borgmeyer.
Thank you very much. Mayor, anyone who is a mayor is responsible for managing over 400 employees, 14 departments, police and fire, community development, contract for city services, i.e. trash and everything that needs to be done to keep the city going, overseeing multiple projects at the same time, collaborate with the hospital and schools, and we have 3 schools in the city of St. Charles, and the community and organizations. As mayor, with your limited experience managing the multitude of people and projects, what 3 techniques that would help you to be a successful mayor?
Well, you know the first one is you got to inspect what you expect. And you know the second one is you can't manage what you don't measure. But the third one is accountability. If you've got people and they're not doing the job, then you've got to get somebody to do the job. I went to a man named Bill Lavage in Phoenix, and I said to Bill, how did you go from being a $10 million a year company or a $5 million a year company like me to being a $100 million company? He handles LifeLock and Massage Envy and the Diamondbacks. I said, how'd you do that, Bill? And he goes, you know what? I finally got past my own ego. I got out of the way. I hired smart people, and I told them what I wanted them to do, and then I got out of their way and let them do it. I think that's the road to success right there. I think there are probably people that manage a staff of 5 that are better managers than people that run multi-million-dollar corporations. It's about function. It's about dedication. It's about process. You know what they said to Nick Saban? How can you go to any school and make it a winner? And he said, process. If you tackle my way, you win. If you don't do it my way, you lose. We've got that on a big poster on the wall in our office. So I don't think leadership is so much a function of how many people you measure or what you do. My friend Ray Munganess says 485 employees. I said, Ray, how do you manage 485 people? He said, I manage 5. Every Monday they're in my office with their goals and objectives for the coming week. The next Monday I say, how did you do? What do you got for this week? That's how I manage them. So I don't think it's a function of experience. And sometimes experience can be a negative rather than a positive. I think we need to take a fresh look at it. I think everybody needs to pitch in and talk to all the department managers and even staff. I mean, I'll go down and work in the garage if I have to. Let's find out what everybody's thinking, and let's move forward that way, and that's how I think you manage people. Give them respect for what they do. The lowest guy, there's this whole thing about some guy was doing a sales thing, and he said, the question was, did you introduce yourself to the cleaning lady when you came in downstairs? And he goes, no. You introduce yourself to the cleaning lady. That's what you do, and you go from there all the way up. You got to give them respect for what they do. They will love what they do. I mean, I met guys in Johns, if you will, in airports. And I mean, they're snapping their fingers and they're happy and they're so proud of how clean that place is. And I'm so grateful for how clean that place is. That's the kind of attitude and that's the kind of culture we have to build in this city. And I don't think it's here now.
Mr. Borgmeyer, question of the mayor.
Sally, we've gone over crime. We've gone over Frenchtown. We've gone over a lot of things that have happened in the last 8 years. And while you can tout about Bangert Island and some of the other things, I think that the largest part of this debate has been, why isn't this happening? Well, we have a plan for this. We have a plan for this. We're going to get to this. We're going to do that. Tell me, after 8 years, why there should be 4 more the same. What are you going to change?
I'm going to change the look of the city. There are a lot of things that are pending, that are happening, and that will finish and culminate this year. I have changed the city. The road project on 5th Street, I know people get upset at the diverging diamond at 70. I love the orange cones that are there. That means when they're gone, that there's going to be a project that's done, trying to maintain and keep the roads and the subdivisions and the places that in the city and keep them going and keep them maintained. Looking at those things have been happening, and they are happening well. We are saving money for the city. We're doing it the right way, and I'm excited about it. And I would say to you, sir, and to each one that is sitting here, that things are happening in the future, and we're going forward. We had people that said no. I had people who said to me when I ran for mayor, 8 years ago, there is no way in the world Streets of St. Charles is going to survive. You can't do that. You can't build it. You can't maintain it. You can't have people pay the money that is needed there. It has happened. And I have learned in being mayor is that when you hit a brick wall and things aren't going the way they should be, and you don't give up, you keep going forward. And that's what has accomplished the things, the projects that we've had in the city, the growth at Newtown, the annexation of subdivisions and land that we've had, and it is happening, and I am excited about it. It's going to happen in St. Charles, not St. Peter's.
The closing remarks by both candidates. Mayor Faith, your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. I have to get my lines up here. Often within 24 hours, a variety of tasks are given out to the fire department and the police department. But I want to say that they are part of, even though they're not in the city complex, they are the main part of the city. I feel I have been a strong leader for St. Charles because, having served in government at the state level, having maintained my relationship with governors and the members of the state legislation, both of which provide the necessary ears to hear and support our need. Example is Bangert Island, highway improvements, and looking at a lot of things that have been delivered. I have delivered on our city's promises to the city, keep our citizens safe, provide economic growth, maintain relationship with schools and services, maintain and improve infrastructure, provide increased opportunities for communication within our government administration and with our citizens, and to reach out to as I had indicated earlier, we are a city. We talk about if St. Louis fails, it'll flow out this way. But you know what? If one of our cities in St. Charles County fails, but we work together, the mayors meet together once a month with the administrators, we talk about what each one is doing, we look and see if we can help each other, certainly that is an important part. And the main thing is, we are St. Charles. That's who we are. And I don't want to be anything else. It's been an honor to serve the city, and thank you for that opportunity to do that.
Mr. Borgmeyer, your closing remarks?
I just learned this week, I've been looking into a lot of things in the city and how we do it. And one of the agenda items last night at City Hall was disposable property. Okay? And someone gave me a yard sign out at Drusty and Zumbo. And I went out there. It was purchased about 10 years ago as a site for a St. Charles Fire Station. That didn't work out. Paid $203,000 for it. It was appraised at $130,000. We sold it for $100,000. We took a $103,000 taxpayer hit on that piece of property. I said, well, what was the criteria? Well, there wasn't really any criteria. Well, did you use a realtor? No, they charge a fee. Well, how was it broadcast? How did you sell it? I said, what's your process for doing that? Well, we really don't have a process. You can't operate that way. A sharp rise in crime, higher taxes, and numerous instances of frivolous spending is the status quo. If you're comfortable with the status quo, then I am not your guy. But if you're ready for fresh, energetic leadership who will devote their full time and attention to decreasing crime in St. Charles, fixing our streets and infrastructure, and working to bring more jobs with family-supporting wages to St. Charles, then I am your guy. I ask for your vote on April 2nd.
I just want to point out again, Molly Dempsey is in the back with applications for county election judges. So those, if you want to do that, please meet her and do so. And we appreciate you being here tonight.
Thank you.